Hello everyone, nubkeks here and welcome back to Nub Raids. In today's video, we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into the upcoming hard mode dungeons. We kind of thought that they might come last week when they cancelled Clan v Clan, so who the heck knows? I think there's a pretty good chance that they could drop this week. And they're looking pretty tough. We're going to go through each of these dungeons here today. I'm going to be focused particularly on accessible champions. So recent fusion champions, login champions, clan shop champions, that sort of stuff. Some MVP, I think, epics as well to mention. And we'll talk about the 4 different dungeons and some of the stuff that you can start to prep to prepare for these dungeons. Now, the first big tip I will give you, though, is do not do not spend these resources yet. You don't need to go in and spend your chickens or spend your brews or spend your books. You can see I'm just saving. There's no need to prepare these champions right now. But what I would say is start saving up the resources. Have silver banked up, have books banked up, have these champions, in your vault ready to go. You've got them marked, you know where they are. Just be thinking about how many of these sort of champions might I actually need to do these hard mode dungeons. And yeah, just save up so that you will be able to build them when the need actually comes. But of course, this is theory crafting. And when it comes to practice, it can easily turn out. It always does. There's always some crazy team that someone comes up with that is just so smart, so clever that I wasn't able to predict it or even close to predict it, that sort of thing. So yeah, just take it, be smart about it. Don't go build all these champions now. I am not, but it's just thinking about what you will need to build. Let's take a look here at the first boss, Tainted Hellraiser. So this is the hard mode dragon. What are the big differences here? Well, the main difference is he now puts out 4 poisons instead of 2. He gives himself increased attack, and then his secret skill is actually now going to be dealing pure damage. And will also activate all the poisons. So it's going to blow up all your poisons as well. And of course, all of these bosses as well, they do take bonus damage for each awakening level that you have. And you also take less damage from the boss for each awakening level that you have as well. I think broadly speaking, this Tainted Hellraiser, the dragon, doesn't look too difficult, and you'll see we look at the champions. You've got some extremely good accessible champions, extremely good for taking this down. Effectively, he hits much harder, right? More poisons, hits way harder. So it's going to be a bit about survivability. And of course, we're probably going to need higher resistance, higher accuracy, higher speed, etc., etc. When it comes to these champions, though, the reason I think it's not too bad, we actually have boom, the December and January guys back to back, who I think are just the perfect combo for this. Pythion and Nishak Verminlord. So Pythion, we mentioned him first. I think he is going to be insane. He comes in, he brings us a cleanse and a heal. He does bring us a revive if people die, and he's going to be reducing the damage that we take. I think the main role that he's going to come in is block debuffs to block those poisons and reducing damage, right? Cleansing, all that sort of stuff. He's very, very strong here. So for survivability, he gives you a really big bulk of the job done already. I also think that Mithrala from Hydra comes in as kind of an MVP here as well. If Nishak is not enough, if Pythion's not enough to keep you alive, combo that with another fairly accessible champion. Takes time to get, but I mean, we're talking about the top stage of hard mode dungeons here. But in a Mithrala, she's giving you strengthen. She's giving you a massive shield. She gives you increased defense as well. I think you put her in there in combination with Pythion. All of those Mithrala buffs are going to give you more value from that Pythion passive, even more damage reduction. And yeah, I think you're going to be just fine. And then we go to the damage side of it, where I think Nishak really stands out. The Christmas fusion from this year. He comes in with 2 bombs out there with an extra turn. The bombs do double damage to targets with higher HP, which of course the dragon will have. He has decreased attack as well, which is going to really mitigate those direct hits from the dragon. He decreases the bomb cooldowns. He extends poisons. His bombs turn into poisons. He's more bombs than his A1. So I think he brings all the damage. So I think you put the 3 of these together, poisons really. defensive buffs. What we're really looking for here. And there you go. I think you've got 3 champions together are easily going to be able to take this down. I think definitely for me, the bigger question with this dragon boss is not going to be, can you beat it? It's really going to be about how quickly can you beat it once you've got the right champions. So I think these are strong options. And you can obviously sub these out. You could put in champions. You could put in like a Lydia and Rhonda or whatever, smash through some waves more quickly. If you wanted to do a full 5-man team, that's fine. If you don't have a Nishak, you could use a different poisoner. That's going to work as well. You could use something, even something basic like a Frozen Banshee is probably still going to do the job against the boss. You've got flexibility there. I think it looks pretty straightforward though, so I'm not too worried about Dragon. It's really a question of coming up with the right team to do it fast. I think with a Nishak, you're going to do it pretty fast anyway. Next up then, we've got the Ice Golem, Tainted Klyssus. This one is very different from the current Ice Golem because he's now going to be immune to poison. But he does take more damage from HP burn. And he also, of course, does this whole hits hard thing. Interesting as well, whenever HP burns do damage, it's going to destroy his minions max HP. And the smite debuff is also going to destroy his minions max HP by more. This is probably going to be a fairly slow boss to solo, I would think, seeing as you're not going to be able to do it with poisons now, which you could do before. Plus, the stat requirements are going to be very high. Certainly interesting. Basically, the way that you do Ice Golem up to stage 25 now, the quickest way is often just to let your team die and then have one tanky poisoner just kill the boss with poisons. Because the poisons don't trigger the adds to respawn, and you just slowly wear the boss down with poisons. He can't kill you, and it's actually very fast. Don't think it's really going to work. Funny enough, though, I actually think that this is going to work just the same. I guess we should put in Nishak as bomb/poison. I think the same trio here is going to give you a really good foundation for doing this boss. Nishak, yes, the poisons won't work, but he's still going to put out lots of bombs, even on his A1 as well. He's going to kill the side adds very quickly with the poisons. That's definitely going to help. The bombs will help kill the boss. He still brings a decreased attack for the boss. And then you still have that same combo of Pythion keeping you alive, right? He's got the revive. He's got this passive to protect you from the boss retaliation hits if that goes wrong, which you could easily do. He brings some healing as well. And then you've got Mithrala, again, for all those defensive buffs. The shield, the strength, and the increased defense. Increased defense, not as useful. The boss starts ignoring it. Right, for each, where is it? Yeah, so the attack ignores 50% of your defense for each alive enemy. That's where the Pythion passive, the strengthen, the shielding for Mithrala, that stuff all comes together to be very strong. So I actually think the 3 of them give you a really strong foundation still for taking down this boss in pretty reasonable time. This is a very budget build for someone that's been playing actively for like the last 6 months. You could easily be approaching getting all of these champions. You might not have Mithrala yet, but if you finish the Nishak fusion, you're probably not far off. And you've got the Pythion one then as well, if you did Nishak, probably. You kind of have a trio that can take on both of these bosses pretty fast, I think. So that looks pretty good. Now, there are other champions that stand out for Klyssus. I think a big one that stands out is Insane and that everyone can get, though. It's a real misery to get him. I've not got him. I think Kronam's going to be kind of nuts here. So he does a lot of damage. He's an AoE with HP burn. Going to give himself lots of turn meter. He activates then burns on everyone, right? Everyone. 3 hits at random. Activates the burns and heals him. So he's going to heal himself up. He can extend debuffs on the target as well with his A1. That's going to be good for keeping the burns up on the boss and decrease attack on the boss. So the boss will cleanse himself as well. If you combo him with Jamarsa, he'll revive if he does happen to die. And he's, of course, going to be activating these burns very quickly. So I think Kronam is a very interesting option, honestly, for this boss as well, where he's going to really, if it comes down to HP burn, if HP burn ends up being the strat, I think he is the champ to go for. Ninja, for example, is obviously much harder to get. You have to be playing way back when Ninja was around. Ninja only activates HP burns against bosses, so it won't activate against the minions, whereas Kronam will, which is pretty powerful. So yeah, if this extra damage from HP burns ends up being a lot, and if decreasing the minions' max HP ends up mattering quite a lot, I could see Chronum actually being quite key to going through. I don't think it's important really to run Jamarsa with him. I don't think she's that good for this, but it's something to consider. Another champion I think is very good, accessible option, and very strong for this is going to be Phoenix. Let's actually pop Phoenix right in there. He stands out to me as a potential MVP here. Block revive, basically, and damage, and Chronam as well, damage, but burns. He stands out as very good. Phoenix's A1 hits incredibly hard if the target has any debuffs and enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. I think that is probably the most accessible and strongest way to block revive against these minions in the game. He also has an AoE, which has block buffs. Not amazing, but it gives you some AoE damage for the waves. And then he has a decreased defense, decreased speed on his A3. So he does have decent off moves, but they've got pretty long cooldowns. Actually works in your favor if you leave them up still. He's still going to do lots of A1s. Could be, again, a good combo with Chronam. Chronam starts activating all these burns. Chronam just decreases their max HP. Phoenix will eventually start blocking revive, and you probably get through pretty quick. I think there's lots of options there. I think, yeah, not looking too bad, Tainted Klyssus. My main worry here, I think it's going to be beatable. My main worry really is how quickly can you beat it. It's pretty slow. It's a pretty slow dungeon because if you start killing him too quick, these retaliation hits can really mess you up. So definitely interested to see how this one goes and whether those burns come into it. The next one then is the spider. Now the spider is going to be very different. Tainted Skavag. So the big difference here, which I think really mixes this up, is that, where does it say it? Well, she's immune to, maybe, I'm blind. Oh my god. She is immune to turn meter, right? Immune to heal reduction, decrease speed, HP burn, and turn, there we go. Immune to turn meter reduction effects. That's the big thing. And HP burn is going to be much less effective now. From the videos we saw, it did seem that the spiderlings, HP burn ticks, would still damage Tainted Skavag. She can't get HP burned herself, but the HP burn procs on the spiderlings seemed to still hurt her. It won't hurt her as much because she's going to heal up a little bit, but it still might be a viable strategy, the HP burn. We'll have to actually test that and see. Maybe it's not enough. But yeah, turn meter not being a thing, it kind of means that the spider is almost definitely going to hit you. You might be able to build a ridiculously fast team, but I think realistically speaking, the spider is going to hit you at least once. So your spider team now needs to actually have a bit of tankiness, a bit of survivability. You can't get hit too hard. We also do a lot of damage to the boss whenever we kill a spiderling. So she can have, of course, up to 10 active at a time, and each one that you kill damages Skavag equal to 3% for max HP. So you kill all 10 spiderlings, you've done 30% max HP damage, and then, you know, a bit of extra damage as well on top of that to get up to 50%. I think basically what you're going to do with this boss is you kill the wave of spiderlings with your last turn. She takes a turn. She doesn't heal because you've killed all the spiderlings. She spawns in 4 more at the end of her turn. You get 3 more sets of 2 spawned in. So another 10 spiderlings. You kill the second set of 10 spiderlings, and that should hopefully be the spider dead. So basically, you're going to get 60% of your max HP out of 2 full waves of spiderlings dead, and you're going to need to come up with another 40% of your max HP damage as well. And you're going to need to survive her hitting you once, and you're probably going to need to speed tune it so that you kill the spiderlings right before she takes a turn, basically. So that, yeah, she can't heal at all. This is going to be quite interesting. You know, that might not be the way it actually goes. Maybe you do let her get a bit of a heal. I don't know. She starts getting more attack whenever she eats a spiderling, so that could get a little sketchy. And certainly for killing it quickly, I think just killing a wave, she hits you once, spawn another wave, kill it again. That's probably going to be the fastest way too, right? So yeah, interesting stuff. How do we do it? One champion that actually, crazy enough, stands out to me as potentially being really good here. Yeah, you're not going to believe it. It's actually Moranix. I think could be very strong. So this is one definitely to keep an eye on. Moranix was a fusion a lot of people skipped. What does Moranix do? She has AoE Hex with decreased defense. Then she has a second AoE as well, that will actually give her unkillable if she kills an enemy with Hex, right? She gets 2 turns of unkillable if she kills an enemy with Hex. So she'll definitely survive the spider hit. No stress there. And she has these 2 AoEs, which is pretty cool. On top of that, her passive will give her a free reset on her second AoE when she kills an enemy with Hex. And she also gets 5% attack for every enemy under Hex as well. That's kind of cool. There's 10 spiderlings, and plus the boss, she can get up to 55% bonus attack. So I think as an AoE nuker, to actually kill these spiderlings, bringing in the Hex, the decreased defense, another AoE, she's actually quite a strong option. And yeah, you might actually be running her as a kind of fast nuker to take 2 turns before the boss goes, right? To go once, preferably after, hopefully after you've got some buffing champions have gone, so that she can actually Hex and decrease defense all the spiderlings. And then again, right before the boss to actually blow them up and kill them all. She could be a very attractive option. So there you go, Moranix, maybe actually going to get a time to shine. I think to survive, I do think that once again, Mithrala does sort of stand out here a little bit as well. If you need that survivability, Mithrala does come in and she gives you big shield and strengthen. So this will help your squish champs to survive that spider hit if the spider hit ends up being very strong. And she also does bring increased attack and Hex, which is going to, of course, up your damage to nuke these spiderlings down. So I think she's a strong option. A champion that obviously was a much older fusion. I think Brogni stands out as really good. Block debuffs, increase attack, and a massive shield in one move. That's extremely good for this boss now as well. And just generally speaking, the nukers are going to be good. I think Supreme Elhain actually could come through and be fairly useful for people as well. Lydia comes through with a decreased defense weaken as being pretty useful too. The reason I think Supreme Elhain's going to be pretty good compared to, let's say, Rhonda. Rhonda's got quite a long cooldown on her AoE, right? Rhonda comes in and she has a 4-turn cooldown on her AoE, whereas Supreme Elhain is going to have only a 3-turn cooldown. So you could run like Supreme Elhain with a Lydia. Lydia is going to be bringing you in that decreased defense weaken and a strengthen to help you survive. And then you could do a reset with Renegade, right? Renegade's a rare champion. She can come in, reduce your cooldowns by 2 turns. So those 3-turn cooldown skills, Supreme Elhain, Lydia, they can go again back-to-back, decrease defense, weaken, and then Supreme Elhain, nuke AoE. Could be a good option. This boss is interesting. It's gonna be kind of tough. I think it's gonna be kind of tough to set up initially, but it should be fairly consistent one to farm once it gets going, basically. But yeah, that initial speed tuning and building the right team is going to be tricky. So we shall see. We shall see. Because it's definitely one you want to do quickly as well. I think that's the main struggle with all of these, is you want to do them fast. Now, the one boss that really stands out to me as potentially being on another level is Tainted Fyro, the Fire Knight. I think the Fire Knight is going to be kind of insane. So the big difference here, number one, he's immune to turn meter reduction as well. However, freeze debuffs are going to decrease his turn meter by 15% for every freeze that's placed on him. His shield is also going to be a 21-point shield. So this is a boss that I think, number one, is going to be extremely hard to kill quickly, but number two is going to be just difficult to beat at all. I think it's going to be difficult to beat at all. I think you've got 2 hurdles. Number one, getting through a 21-point shield. And number two, actually turn meter controlling him with just freezes. I think there's 2 champions that really stand out to me. We've got Yakarl from the clan shop. He stands out. And then I think Gory stands out too. And then I think we're going to be looking for ally attack champions as well. This is probably the way we're going to do it. So Yakarl from the clan shop really becomes a bit of an MVP here. Yakarl has, crucially, he's got a 100% chance to freeze and a decreased speed on his A2. I think that's going to be very, very good. Unfortunately, this stealing turn meter is not going to help. But you put Yakarl in, look, he's going to decrease speed, he's going to freeze, he gives himself increased speed as well. So if we're keeping up that consistent turn meter control and the boss is going to do well. He has a 100% freeze on his A3, which will help you with the waves as well. And then a double hitter with 2 50% chances of freeze on his A1. sort of the problem you're going to run into, and definitely where I'd be waiting to build up this champion for sure, is we don't know how much accuracy and speed he's going to need. And here's the thing. If you got to crank his speed and his accuracy really high, you're not going to be able to build him for damage. I think that is the biggest question mark right now. But in terms of freeze, he's probably the most consistent champ in the game for that. He does a whole bunch of extra damage stuff, but only against frozen targets. And obviously the boss doesn't get frozen. It just depletes his turn meter instead. But as a consistent turn meter champ for the boss, he's very strong and everyone can get him. Now, the other one that certainly stands out right now, there's very few good options. I'm going to be honest, very few. Gory, I think, is the one that stands out to me as well. Terrible base stats, unfortunately, but this is the move. 3 turn cooldown when booked, triple hit at random, each hit 100% chance when booked of placing freeze. So 3 freezes on a 3 turn cooldown. That's 45% turn meter reduction. That's pretty good. You're almost definitely going to be wanting to run Gory very fast, high accuracy in a reflex set to try to reduce this cooldown as much as possible, get this off as much as you can. His other moves are effectively useless against the boss. He does have a double hitter, which is going to help you take down the shield. But yeah, you're probably going to want him to get in double hit as the opener against the boss, and then Frost Jutsu to knock that turn meter back. This guy might be the key. When you think about Allure, he's actually stat-wise very similar. They both have, for their purposes, for what they're used for, which is high speed, high accuracy, turn meter controllers, they've got absolutely horrendous stats. They're very squishy, very slow with not much accuracy. Both these champs have terrible stats. Now, Allure, every A1 is going to do 75% turn meter. That's actually going to be what, 37.5? Yeah, because the boss takes half turn meter, so 37.5 every turn. And that's a pretty big difference compared to Gory, right? So for stage 25 Fire Knight, Allure, 37.5% turn meter reduction every turn. Gory, going to be 45% turn meter every 3 turns. So 37.5 every turn versus 45 every 3 turns. The 37.5 every turn wins by a landslide. That's where the reflex set's going to be very important. I think gear could be very intensive as well to make him quick enough, Gory, to do the job. And whereas you can get away with 1 Allure for Fire Knight 25, like I do, I think you're going to want at least 2 champions to turn meter control. Your Carl definitely comes in as a useful option because he brings the decreased speed as well, and plus boosting his own speed. So your Carl, I think, could be a good option to pair with the Gory for consistent stuff. You might run the 2 together. I actually have 2 Yakarls, so I'm actually quite curious to see what way it goes. Do you run double Gory, Yakarl and Gory, double Yakarl? I think I'm not really that impressed with any other freezer, to be honest. I don't see any other freeze champion pulling this off. Both champions do have double hit A1s, which will help a bit with the shield. Now, to get the rest of the shield down, I think you're going to need champs like Farrakhan the Fat with ally attack. It's going to be the way to do it. It's tricky. This is quite tricky to get down the 21-point shield. Ally attack, of course, gives you the most hits, right? I mean, you imagine with this beatdown, he goes in, he opens with this, all allies attack. Let's say you're running a Gory and a Yakarl. They both have double hit A1, so you're getting 4 hits out of that just by default. You put in another 2 champions, you're going to get some more hits in as well. So it gives you a lot of hits. For 1 move, it's like the most hits you can get, which is why I think ally attack will be important. And of course, with Yakarl in particular, the ally attack, once the shield is down, also will give you some more chances for freeze and turn meter. He does have decreased defense on his A1 as well, which will help you kill the boss a bit quicker. His A2 can burn and poison, which might give you some use with Dark Hail as well. They could be a combo. I'm considering that too, because I think this boss is just going to be quite tricky. Dark Hail, another champ everyone can get, he can come in. And with just his A1, it's a triple hitter. So it's a triple hit for the shield, and it explodes, poisons, and HP burns. Could be quite a good combo with Farrakhan the Fat. Without Farrakhan the Fat, it's pretty underwhelming. Yeah, we'll see. There are champions like Krutraxa, who's got a 4-hitter A1, and she also has an extra turn on her A2 as well. Could be a good option. She brings Weaken as well there, which could be nice to combo with the decreased defense with like a Farrakhan. These are things to consider, but I think this is going to be a very, very, very hard boss. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure exactly how you're going to do it, but I think it's going to be very tricky. I really expect likely freeze and turn meter is the way to go. So there you go, guys. I also should mention, I think Rhonda is going to be actually excellent for this boss as well, as a very free to play sort of friendly option. Wave clear for the waves, which is nice. But she's got the triple hit A1 that can start doing extra hits. Not that important. But her passive, the chance to join in as well. So she's going to give you lots of attacks, which will help you, I think, take down the shield. Though the passive is not super reliable. That's sort of the problem right there. But he does give you lots of hits, so Rhonda could be a very strong option for a multi-hitter. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think, though? Are there champions? Have I left anything out? I've been trying to focus on accessible ones. Like one cool combo, you could do Mighty Uko and Owella together for Dragon. Could be kind of cool, right? You got the decrease accuracy from Mighty Uko with the removing the debuffs, blocking the buffs. Removing and blocking buffs off the dragon, so getting rid of the increase attack. He can put decrease attack. He brings revive. Then Owella with a resistance aura, increase resistance. You've got like increase resistance plus decrease accuracy. You just resist the poisons from the boss. You're not going to die. Owella heals a ton. That could be a cool combo to take down the dragon. I didn't think Morrigan or Huskarl really stood out as being useful for any of these, unfortunately. Supreme Malhane is not a bad option. It's just a sort of wave clear for some of these dungeons too. It's a damage dealer. But yeah, I do think this looks quite tricky. Like I said, I think the dragon is quite easy. That shouldn't be a problem. If you have Nishak and Pythion, I think you've got this in the bag, and you're going to be able to do the dragon quickly, pretty soon. We'll see what sort of teams come up. Ice Golem, I think, is pretty tricky. I actually think that Nishak, funny enough, looks to be an absolute monster for that as well, because the bombs will still work on the boss. Pythion, Mithral, again, for keeping... The same team covers both, in my opinion. And I'd definitely be considering Block Revive as could be good. Burns might be good. Walking Tombdrang, maybe. The Spider, I think that Hex and Nukers and stuff like that is probably going to be the way to go with a very specifically speed-tuned team. I think this is going to take some smart people a little bit of work to figure it out. But I think you're going to be able to build a good team for that without too much hassle. It should be pretty flexible with the Nukers. It's just going to be making sure you've got a right speed tune and you don't die to the Spider. And then Fire Knight looks really hard, and I would definitely be holding on to Gory. I'd definitely be getting your Carl fragments if you haven't, and saving up books to potentially book them if you want to take that dungeon on. I think this dungeon looks to be ridiculous compared to the others. Yeah, it's more of a how quickly can you do these dungeons, and Fire Knight is can you do it at all. There are my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and if you have any hot tips, and I will see you all very soon, when hopefully we'll get to playtest these dungeons this week. We'll see. Hopefully they're live soon. I hope you enjoyed, though, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.